everyone. This is your host, Manoj Tandon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Dark Rhino Securities, Security Confidential. Today we have another great guest, but you guys got to remember, hit the like and subscribe button so that we can keep bringing you this great content. The algorithms are the masters, and you help us out when you do this. So please hit that. Now, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Mr. Alex Sharpe. He's our honored guest. Alex is a board member, a practitioner, a speaker, and an author. He's a guy who is well versed with driving value and managing risk. His career started in the intelligence community. He has led a lot of organizations through strategic transformations across global enterprises. He's built 2 startups, IPO'd one of them. I'd love to hear about that. And he's participated in over 20 M&A transactions. I want to hear about that too. He's recognized as a top thought leader in cybersecurity, and we're grateful to have him. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Manoj. This is fun. I enjoy this stuff. Thank you.
As do I, which is why I keep trying to do it. I was just telling our producer that this is a passion project.
Perfect.
It allows us to selfishly get our name out, but more importantly, hopefully we're helping some people by having people like you on. And with that, Alex, let's start this is about you. So give us a little bit about your dossier, your background, how you got into this wonderful adventure.
Oh man. So first of all, I think you ran down all the broad strokes. How did I get into this? First of all, I'll tell you that my entire career has been a series of unanticipated phone calls. And maybe not phone calls. Sometimes they're physical communications, but they're phone calls. So what had happened is, going back a little further, I ended up putting myself through school. I had determined very early. I determined 2 things when I was younger. Number one is my way out of a bad situation was education. Right? That's something I figured out. I wasn't going to be the sports guy. I wasn't going to be a lot of different things, but I knew how to work hard. I was curious. I didn't mind, the expression, when you learn to ski, if you're not falling, you're not learning. I didn't mind that stuff. Right. I would often get ticked off at myself if I made the same mistake over again. But, I'm okay getting bruised up. So I said, education's my way to go. I got to do that. The other thing I figured out quickly is my family wouldn't be able to pay for it. So I would have to do it. So I went to a community college. I worked my way through school, went to a 4-year school, hardcore engineering.
What was your degree in?
My bachelor's is in electrical engineering, concentrating in computer engineering with minors in math and computer science. It don't get more geeky than that, right?
I thought aeronautical engineering, which is my background, is pretty geeky as well. But
it is. Chemical is the same way. I mean, any of the engineering fields, the true engineering fields, any of the STEM fields are geeky. So
true.
I did that because I liked building things. And when I'm in the community college, I'm going, well, I also like business. I made another right decision where I said, you know what? If I do the engineering first, I will do the business. If I did the business first, I would never end up doing the engineering. Right decision. Graduate. I get an offer from the National Security Agency. They had requested I interview with them. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I'm sitting there going, all right, this is the lowest job offer I'm getting, but it sounds really cool. I'm doing some good things. Why wouldn't, let's do it, right? So I end up on the offensive side of the agency, right? It's got an offense and a defense side. And I'm working on this project and really interesting and all kinds of cool stuff. And
can I ask you what year this was?
Well, the conversation happened in 87. I started in 86. This conversation happened in 87. So,
Okay.
like I said, my career is all these unanticipated conversations. So, I'm working on this project on the offense side. And one guy said, we've got this other part of the agency that does this stuff, and we're starting to use the term infosec. And I'm like, never heard of it, but it's the protective side. And I was like, okay, I'll listen. I'll listen. And they were starting up an intern program where they were trying to recruit the next wave of infosec professionals, and they're still debating about
Okay.
what infosec is. And I'm
So
sitting there.
could I ask one question there? So in those days, um, were you still in the world of mainframes?
Well, we're still in
And
the world of mainframes. Even though Time Magazine declared them dead in the 90s, they still exist.
yes.
Yes, there were more mainframes running around than there are today.
And were they getting hacked?
Oh, yes, they were in big way, big way,
Oh,
big way.
okay.
A lot of the banks. So let me tie off the story. So,
Yes, please.
so what happened is I came to the conclusion that being the defender is a harder job than being on the other side. So that was kind of cool. And I got recruited over. And then years later, when I went into the management consulting ranks, it was another phone call. Oh, just let you know, a contractor that was working for the program I was on. Oh, just let you know, some of us are going off and we're going to go over here and do some stuff. It's like, okay, let me know when you land. Said, no, we want you to come with us. I was like, oh, okay. So it's always been these unanticipated phone calls. So hacking started as long ago as when computers were first around. We could probably go back to analytical machines. We could probably go back to the analytical engine, which was purely mechanical in the 19th century by Charles Babbage. I will guarantee you people were trying to misuse it and to hack into it because it's human nature.
I, that's understandable. It's very understandable. But, you know, for our audience, and understand a lot of them probably grew up in the 2000s, right? So the era in which you began this pioneering journey, we think about inter computer communication would have been a modem, like literally you call on the phone, you hang it up on a handset, you connect in, and it might bring up notions of the movie War Games from way, way back. You know, do you want
Uh,
to play a game, Alex?
we want to play a game. And then, excellent example. They were hacking into that machine because of a default password, a backdoor that was never closed. Still,
Which happens still today.
it still happens today. Now, here's one of the advantages of going to work for the government. There was
Yeah,
this thing called the internet
yeah,
that at that time could only really be accessed by academics and government. So
DARPANET.
it's actually so DARPANET effectively ended in 1980 when the internet moved over to the Internet Protocol.
Okay,
So, but DARPA was there. They changed the protocol. We called it the internet. So for about 10 years, yeah, close to 10 years, I was dealing with the internet. And then for about 5 years, I was dealing with the World Wide Web before the public became aware of them. This is
okay.
one of the beauty of going to work for the government. Well, for the right part of the government, you get access to all this stuff, right? So, you know, it was actually a leading indicator. At the time, as a young engineer, I did my first AI use case, which is around analyzing log files to look for suspicious activity. A use case we're still trying to deal with today. I was dealing with quantum computing, which it's been 20 years away for the past 30 years. We're getting close, right? So this is one of the advantages of going to work for the right government agency. You get to see what's 2, 3, 4, 5 steps down the road. That's
Hmm.
one of the advantages.
Working on some of the things you just mentioned, AI back then. So for me, my AI journey back in 1987 was with this thing called Lisp. I
Oh
don't know if
God.
you remember that.
Oh God,
Lisp
yes.
processing. So,
So,
so what? But and it was severely limited. I mean, if you look at, and I emphasize that for you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. It sounds it it was
painfully.
painfully limited, painfully limited. Were you folks back then looking at machine learning? And if so, how did you do it with the compute power that we had?
So this is why I talk about unanticipated phone calls and unanticipated conversations. Um, so a little bit of history with that, and we'll go back to the conversation. So what most people don't realize is the stuff we're dealing with today was really turned into the modern era in 1950 by Alan Turing, right? They have the movie
Yeah.
about him, right? And the
Yep.
movie's actually named after his paper that's all about AI,
Yeah. He
right?
actually got it to recognize a cat or something. I forget what it was.
There was a few things like that, yeah. Um, and then the term came around about 5 years later by during a conference hosted by Dartmouth when they started using the term AI. List was invented, all these other things. There was approximately a 20-year period that is often referred to as the AI winter, where like everything went sideways.
Okay.
About the time I was just starting at NSA, we were coming out of that ice age, the AI ice age, and the agency. Interestingly enough, DARPA funded the first set of um, Alan Turing's projects, right?
Okay.
So created a lot of things we're using today. And when the winter started to thaw, they came back and said, "What can we do?" And we have this use case, and you seem to be interested in this, and the only one interested. Why don't you run the project? And I was like, "Okay, cool." But what had happened is, and this is really interesting because to your point, the data wasn't available, the cost to store the data wasn't there, the compute power wasn't there, but the algorithms were.
Yeah. The
Interesting.
math was there.
The math was there. And the algorithms we're using today to solve this problem are the same ones we used decades ago, but the NVIDIA chips actually compute differently. It's not that they have more horsepower, it's not brute force. They compute differently. The cost of data has gone huge. The cost to store data, phew, and we no longer need to worry about transferring between machines. At the time, we had separate banks of storing this data that we were working with. We had these Ethernet cables, which were 1/10 of the power they are today, that we would have to transfer these data sets back and forth. We didn't have as much RAM. Now you could do all that stuff on one board. So between the cost of the data, the availability of the data, different computing, and doing these transfers at machine speeds instead of electrical speeds across the room, we have made major advances. Have we figured it all out yet? No, but we will.
No.
But we will.
Well, I think there is, it's the pace of change is absolutely incredible now. But I still think we have to light the candle on AI. There's a long, long way to go. I mean, what this is going to do for society as a whole, I don't think people can imagine all the outcomes that are about to come.
My prediction is it's a bigger change than electricity or the
So
semiconductor.
I'll tell you, and then we'll get back on topic here. One thing, this is your my humble opinion on the thing. I'm sure you've heard of this old. There's an old adage that goes, you know, the man who knows how will always have a job. The man who knows why will always be his boss.
Yep.
That equation is broken with AI. I think going into the future, the man who knows why will still be the boss, but the man who knows how may not necessarily have a job. And
That's an interesting thought. So my you talk about passion projects. My primary passion project is workforce development.
Okay.
And I gobble up everything I can about the impact of AI on the workforce.
Okay.
This is an interesting thought that I'm gonna chew on and kick around with a lot of people. It's a very interesting thought. I'm wondering how much of the how problem is that we have too many people that are equating AI with a specific tool they have in front of them, and they're not looking at it as a discipline.
Oh, well, there's quite a bit of that. But then, Alex, so you look at our entire, if we really come out to a macro view, and um, our entire educational system is geared towards the repetition of facts, understanding things. Now, I know it, being an engineer, that's not true, because engineering training is all about understanding fundamentals and understanding how you can apply those fundamentals
And
uh,
a
it,
problem solving,
and
critical
problem
thinking,
solving. Yeah,
critical thinking and problem solving.
but I'm going to pick on something that maybe, like, if you're a paralegal, okay. Yeah, you're laughing again, but yes, if you're a paralegal, I can tell you that I would say in 5 to 10 years, AI is going to do a better job than the human paralegal, because it can slam through all that data very quickly and build correlations. If you are a pathologist or a radiologist, probably a lot fewer of you will be needed. Not that you go away, but instead of having 1,000 of them, we might need 10 of them, because the rate at which these systems can go through, and these things are hitting accuracy levels, Alex, of 3%, right? Which is human accuracy. That's kind of the benchmark. Sub 3%, you're hitting human accuracy levels. So once you start getting to that point, why do we need to have so many of X? Now, I think what that'll do personally is that it's going to, people don't know what they're capable of. And I think it's going to evolve society in ways that we can't imagine,
It will.
because,
It will.
yeah, I- it'll
So,
open up whole new opportunities that go beyond the mundane of, well, I go to the library and I look up cases.
well, let's walk through this. So I laugh when you pick on paralegals. Um,
By the way, I have
be-
nothing against paralegals. It just came to mind.
we can
Yeah.
pick on it. So if you look at historically what happens, work doesn't go away. We transfer it to machines. And in this case, the machine, or you can call it automation if you want, but you transfer it to the AI. What's happening with the disruptions we see from AI, and the only way it's different than every other major disruptions we've ever seen, is this is the first major disruption from a technology that affects the knowledge worker. Now, that's a fancy way of
Yes.
saying white collar that need access to applications and data. So the machine can be specially trained once instead of sending thousands of people through school, and it replaces the knowledge workers. The
Yeah.
law is an interesting thing because the bar exam was one of the first things given to a large language model, and it passed the exam, right?
It also kicked butt on the SAT.
It also kicked butt on the SAT, but it still can't pass a lot of other tests like pre-med, right? It's not passing the professional engineering exams. It's not passing the ones that involve more problem solving.
Yeah. The PE exam is totally problem solving, right?
It's
And so
4
you
hours.
have to be able, yeah, that one that requires conscious thinking. So if I would say, if the problem requires conscious thinking, these models don't think, contrary to popular opinion. They're
They
pattern
definitely,
recognition engines.
yeah, they are. They are. Now, let me dive into this a little more. Oxford University did a very interesting study a few years ago on the jobs that are most likely going to be disrupted from AI. And
Okay.
for the most part, when you look at the list, you go, if you understand AI, it makes perfect sense. There's a few on there that don't make any sense, like roofers and welders. And I was like, help me understand this. It turns out we have never been first of all, home construction industry doesn't adopt technology. That's
It's
one
too
problem,
expensive in most
among
cases.
other things, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened is, what turns out, roofing needs a certain amount of human judgment to build the roof, place the shingle, and all that. Now that the machines can actually combine the visual acuity that humans normally have and the manual labor, we don't need roofers as much. So some of this stuff is really interesting. There's two other important things around this that we don't want to lose. You mentioned adoption. There are lots of studies. I use some of these slides that say famous person said something silly and this happened, right? There is only need for 100 personal computers by the CEO of
Oh,
IBM,
I remember that. Yeah.
right? Einstein came out and said nuclear weapons cannot exist. Learn to regret that. Um, we'll never have a need for flight, right? We see these kinds of things. What's happening, and this is the dean of Whiting School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins has this. He did this analysis. It shows that these famous smart people are still being wrong, but they're finding out how wrong they are faster
Yes.
because it's evolving at such a rate, and the amount of the adoption cycle is shorter than we've ever seen. When we
Oh,
talk,
it's incredible. You look at there was a chart on how quickly ChatGPT got to 100 million users versus how long did it take a cell phone to get to 100 million users versus how long did it take a car to get to 100 million.
I think it was the camera. It took 70 years to gain widespread adoption, right? Chat GPT, 48 hours,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So
it's
I
truly
think
amazing.
that the pace we just can't imagine the amount anything that's involving again consciousness. It's not going to get replaced. So artists, I think that's a tough one, even though people look at all these models, these AI models out there. But when you look at a piece of art from a Van Gogh, there's something, there's a emotional response when you see it. And that can only be created by another human being who understands what it means to be a human being. Right. And same thing happens in music. I mean, there's so many places we can pick those kinds of things that you're not going to replace Albert Einstein with machine learning.
No, and there I think there's two parts to that. One is when I look at a beautiful piece of artwork or listen to a beautiful piece of music, there's an emotional side that says, boy, that person has talent that I don't have, right? And there's an impressive piece to it. The other one is you bring up a very important point, and it's actually referred to as model collapse, because as these models grow and they're used more and more, they they become more generic and more neutral. They've never had passion, but they really kind of lose the the sense of being human. If you use some of these tools like plagiarism and all,
Yeah.
uh, you find that now they all have these AI indicators, and basically they're looking for the level of, they're asking the question, would a human actually talk like this? You
Yeah.
know, so and it's actually called model collapse, but you bring up an excellent point. It's 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 never going to go away.
Yeah. I, but I am very curious to see what the future brings. So let me set up another question for you in this area, Alex, since you have so much experience from the early days. You're a pioneer here.
Oh,
Um,
Nicki Minaj.
let cybersecurity are my favorite topic for biased reasons. Um, if we look at it with the compute power that we have today and what is to come, do I really need an army of people anymore in a SOC? Because why can't I train a large language model on all the attack methodology in the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Look for those indicators of compromise in my logs, auto correlate faster than any level 1, level 2, level 3 SOC analyst could ever hope to do, right? And take action based on a playbook given the right result. So, are we getting into a situation in cyber in the near future where this might become a robot versus robot game?
So yes and no. We'll never get rid of the human, and let's go through that in a second. This is actually referred to as the defender's dilemma.
Okay.
There's a name given to it, and the best paper that I always recommend is by Phil Venables, the CISO for Google Cloud, actually now former CISO Google Cloud. He left and he's an advisor, and his colleague Royal Hansen wrote this paper. It's
Okay.
called Defender's Dilemma, and it talks about the advantages to both the offense and defense. It's actually got more potential for increasing the defender's ability to do just what you're saying. And we're already seeing benefits from this. So spam filters have been around for decades. Well, they're based on AI. And it turns out those filters actually, this is mind numbing, they actually strip off somewhere around 98 to 99% of the malicious traffic before it ever hits the enterprise. We have seen in the past couple of years ISPs and other product suites doing more to detect malicious behavior before it ever makes it to us. So the volume of malicious behavior at the network level that makes it to an enterprise has been going down. The downside is we're seeing a massive increase in social engineering attacks because of chat GPT and the like. Here's a statistic. It turns out, and I never knew this, that Japan had like almost no incidents of ransomware because there weren't enough malicious actors who were native Japanese speakers. Chat
Really?
I heard this and I was like, if the person who shared this with me, I'm like, if I didn't know you, I want to know what joke you're playing on me. So what happens? ChatGPT comes along, all of a sudden ransomware attacks against Japan make sense. Look at the changes in um, social engineering attacks, phishing attacks over the past few years. I used to get up at conferences and talk about this stuff, and I would say, all right, how many people in the past 24 hours got an email about a magical cure for a deadly disease you never knew you had, or a relative overseas that was going to send you millions of dollars if you sold them $10,000 first, or somebody from Eastern Europe who wants to have your baby that you've never met. And the hands, I swear, like everybody in the room, all the hands were up, right? Because those are the three spams I used to get, I swear, daily. Past couple of years, look at what's going on. I don't think I've received one of those messages in months. The messages we get now are much more sophisticated. The last statistics I saw was ChatGPT hit the market October of 2022. In February of 2023, 4 months later, it was reported that the amount of traffic on the dark web about the use of AI in ransomware attacks had increased by 170%. and the efficiency of the attacks was north of 50%. So
Wow.
we got a higher volume, faster to turn around, faster to correct, higher efficiency. And we've seen those numbers just keep going. At the same time, we're seeing that all the filtering and responses, because of AI, that never reach it to the enterprise are having a similar impact. So, there's a net increase, but not as much as you would think it would be. And the net increase is more because we historically haven't paid enough attention to the human dimension, critical thinking by the human. And we're getting better. We always will.
And how do you account for cyber risk in an environment like this then?
We don't have enough time. Right? I no, and I say that very seriously. So, um, because I, because of where I started doing a lot of business work, strategy, and all that, I I've done a lot of work with risk management. One of the major problems we have in this space, and this usually ruffles feathers, is a lot of people in the cyber community throw around the word risk or quantification or risk management, and they don't really know what that term means. None of those terms mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of our biggest problems. Now, how do you account for risk? And I I I have this debate with people that are professional risk quantification managers, and we agreed to still love each other in spite of disagreeing. The problem we have with using a lot of those techniques in the cyber environment is most of the data, most of the techniques are truly designed for an environment that is benign.
Yes.
Just imagine your just imagine your you know just imagine your car insurance. What if you tried to get insurance when a certain percentage on the people on the road were out to get you, right? That's the cyber world, because we just don't build up a lot of statistics about how often does ransomware happen, this, that, and the other thing. We have malicious actors that are actively trying to hurt us. That disrupts a lot of the traditional risk quantification measures. Now, what is valid is we historically in the cyber community have used technical controls to protect all our assets in the enterprise. The reality is not all assets are created equal. So we actually have to have a sense of what are our most valuable assets, look at which are the most exposed. And then on our protection, we need to protect the enterprise, but we also need to specifically protect individual assets. And those are going to include people, process, technology, and the organization. It's not just what technical control can I build my hard outer wall so nobody ever gets in. That no longer works. It
That
work
does not work at all.
doesn't work. It did for a time.
And well, you mentioned something very interesting, the people and process side of this as well, because if you look at business email compromise, just as an example, that's a total process violation. I mean,
Oh, it
that's
is. It is.
a, and people don't think about that. Your IT person is not going to be thinking about it in those terms.
They don't. Now let's go back to AI. AI, every problem, every issue we have with AI, whether it's a risk to the model, risk to the business, use in however we're using it, whatever it is, it's a technology induced problem without a technology solution,
Beautiful.
right? And that's causing us a lot of headaches, because what's the first reaction of a lot of privacy cyber people? They're going, oh, what technical control do I prop up? Well, you can't inspect these models, right? It's not about this hardcore perimeter. It's about the people, the process, the organizational dimensions that feed into all this. Don't get me wrong. There's basic blocking and tackling. You still need access control and logging.
Sure. Yeah. Okay,
But
it's
it's
like you
not
got to
my
lock your car, man. That's basic. And take the
I like
keys with you. You know, so
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
but that doesn't mean your car won't be stolen, as my daughter
No,
can attest to
you
twice.
know, you know
So,
what? Like my dad used to tell me, locks just keep honest people honest. So the tougher the lock, the more sophisticated the crook has to be.
that's right. So, is there a mind shift here that when you're looking at risk that might say, this is a question, that instead of looking at cybersecurity from a technical controls aspect, you know, really look at it from a perspective of defending your brand or your revenue chain, whichever way you want to look at it. And that'll that's much more of a business oriented view of the problem that says, how do you make money? And that includes people and processes which you cannot inspect, as you rightfully said, but are problems that have been induced into them by technology.
Yep.
And that might force the real decision makers in an organization to the table to actually look at the problem
So
rather
let's
than just say, hey, Joe, IT guy, go do it.
so let's dig into that. Remember before I said you have
Please.
to prioritize your assets?
Yep.
Businesses have been doing that for years, using something called a business impact assessment, right?
Yep.
You basically look at your processes, your products, and you say, what's most important to me? And you stack rank them. What the IT folks historically have not been part of that process. So the thing is now, Mr. Business, figure out what's most important. Help me understand what's the nature of the impact. Is it availability? Most of the time it's availability. Sometimes it's confidentiality, usually not integrity unless you're dealing with AI or devices.
Okay.
That then tells you the value of what you're dealing with and the priority. So you do everything you can to protect the enterprise. You still need firewalls and all that kind of remote access solutions. You need all that. But
Yes.
then you prioritize what assets you're protecting, because certain assets are going to cooperate to provide a service. And that's how you prioritize. Now, that's one of those conversations that everybody goes, yeah, we got to do that better. And it's going to take some time. Cyber, historically, by the way, the numbers show this. Historically, the greatest vulnerabilities in an organization are the lack of alignment between strategy, the security architecture, and operations. So using the business impact assessment will help drive that alignment and also establish our priorities. So it'll take a while.
Well, and time is something that we don't have much of. Ransomware attackers have been dramatically cutting down on their time to launch. And I think a lot of people get caught off guard to the point, Alex, as you might have, one statistic that's staggering to me is that 60 to 70% of the backups fail to restore. And please, I see you smiling again. So
No, it's
I
painful.
mean, how do you mess again? It's like,
It's painful. Um, it's painful. I see this all the time. So I cannot tell you. I've worked more than one ransomware cleanup where the enterprise couldn't recover because they never tested the backups, even though they swear they did, but they never did. They never actually try to restore. I have seen organizations that have done everything right, except when during the restoration procedures, they had a dedicated network in the data center that was used for backups and they didn't restore that. So that's mind numbing. I've seen situations where they need to get tapes out of permanent storage, and they come back and say, well, we got to restore in 4 hours. Well, it takes 48 hours to get the tapes pulled from the salt mine in the Midwest. It's like, come on, folks. This is no, not good.
So
I
wouldn't that go into the business impact assessment, though?
Well, it should also be in your incident response plan. So, how do you have an incident response plan that you swear you've tested and you haven't seen this? So, a lot of times we see incident response plans actually, when they do a tabletop, they just talk through things, right? They don't actually test some of it. So, you'll see like regulators coming out now and saying, I want to see you restore from backup, right? Because it's
I
been
would
such.
force them to run from the failover. Run for a few days on the failover, man.
Uh,
Let's see.
you
Does the
know what?
organization function?
There's some organizations that are systemically important that actually do that. I never want to be the guy to pull that switch, though. That takes some big stuff.
Well, I think a deep area where I've seen it impact a lot is, a lot of places are still running on very antiquated systems, not because they want to, because they work. They're not fixing what's not broken. Okay. But
And it costs money to.
what, and it costs money. Now, what they find out very rapidly is that if they have a incident and they cannot recover those backups to those old systems and they are forced to do an update, oh my God, not only do they have a huge cost of re-implementation, a huge cost of software license purchase, a huge cost of hardware purchase, and then you might get a chance to bring that system back online, and they
Never.
don't make it ever. They don't make it.
No. I unfortunately I've seen that.
I've seen
Unfortunately,
that in OT systems, especially in critical infrastructure. A lot of the OT systems are really ancient. And if a server gets hit and you lose one of those servers and you need the data off it, well, the OEM may say, well, we don't even support this anymore. So we can't bring it back for you. You need to upgrade.
yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that. Um,
And
what
those are things that the business impact didn't account for, or it wasn't something the CEO is like sitting in shock. They're like, what do you mean? I got to spend $800,000. Where did this come from?
and this is one of the reasons that if we actually turn the business impact assessment into more than just the business looking at it, and we get the technology folks involved, we get all the other parts of the organization involved, it'll be some not easy discussions, but we will do a whole lot better at these things. Now, what I will tell you is, having worked a lot of incidents, it's also truly amazing how people will go the extra mile to recover the business. Even if they're sleeping on data center floors, they're having the worst day of their life. And when these things come up, they may shake their heads and roll their eyes and bitch a little, but at the end of the day, they don't go home. They're there and they make sure it works. And that's one of the reasons I have a lot of hope for us as an industry, because the tenacity of the average person in our sector is still pretty high. And a lot of times they want to do the right thing, but they don't necessarily know what it is, but they don't run from a fight.
Alex, we're at the hour, and that's a very positive place
Thank you.
to end this first episode, because you need to come back.
Okay, I
but
will do that.
but we wanted to give you there's a couple minutes here. We wanted to make sure you got a chance to plug whatever you'd like to plug with our audience.
Oh, gee. All
So
right.
please.
The, so two things real quick. First of all, connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Alex Sharpe, Sharpe, sharp like a knife. There's an E on the end. I'm easy to find. I'm not the violinist. I'm not the economist. And I am not the Irish tenor. Other than that, you can find me. You could just Alex Sharpe, cyber, resilience, AI. Couple things to plug. I'm going to be at the ISACA's North America conference. If you're there, reach out. There's a couple of things going on. One of them is we've been working on an AI maturity model. ISACA is going to be presenting that as part of some other things that they're doing. I would love for you to attend and take a look at that. The other thing is on May 29th, we are every year a group of us, Johns Hopkins University sponsors this. Every year we get together and we talk about technology disruption, workforce development, and we tie it to something. A few years ago we did May the 4th be with you. We did George Jetson's birthday. This year it's Towel Day in honor of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams. May 29th at 6 o'clock Eastern. You should be able to find it. Just Googling. If you can't, reach out to me through LinkedIn. I would love it.
That's fantastic.
Thank you,
The
Manoj.
answer to life, the universe, and everything is what, Alex?
42.
42. So this has been fantastic talking to you.
Same here,
We've
Manoj.
only scratched the surface.
Same here. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
So did we. So did we. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.